RDMS.
Whenever I do fight again, I need Christian Reynoso there on commentary. Otherwise, I'm not doing it.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to another edition of Reynoso. Christian here. Super excited about today's episode as I get to sit down with somebody whose career I've been following for a long time. None other than Eddie Bravo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, a veteran of EBI 1, who's #1 vet, combat Jiu-Jitsu vet. And now just on the precipice of returning to EBI 25, 11 years after the inception. None other than the Hindulotine master, Ben Eddy. Thank you so much for joining me, Ben.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Yeah, before we went live, I was saying, like, it's cool. Like, one of the cool things about jiu-jitsu is obviously you can go roll with like world champs and get opportunities to meet some stars. And that's kind of how I feel today. You're somebody that I got turned on to a long time ago. Like a lot of people probably on the JRE, right? Joe Rogan and Eddie were talking about, just wild jiu-jitsu players, and your name came up a long time ago.
Ben Eddy's got amazing jiu-jitsu, and he's one of the things I love about him. He's a long-haired hippie, and he's not like a brute at all. Yeah. But he's a goddamn assassin when it comes to jiu-jitsu. Those are my favorite guys, who you would think would be like kind of nerds, but they are. They're like nerd assassins. That's how Eddie always calls them. He calls them like nerd assassins.
I want to say you were a purple belt at the time, and Eddie was talking about like this guy at his gym with a crazy rubber guard. Did you feel like that Rogan effect they talk about at the time? Because I can't be the only one that got turned on to you back then.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was definitely a nice push. That definitely made a big difference. It was that, and it was the same time as the EBI 1. Actually, when he first talked about it, it was a little bit before that, really. So yeah, I guess it was a little bit before the EBI 1. So yeah, I felt the push from that even before the EBI 1.
Yeah, because I think that was around the time where Eddie was getting ready to rematch Hoyler, and if I'm not mistaken, you were helping Eddie get ready for that, which was like March of 2014, and then the first EBI I think was in June. So Eddie is talking about at the time, like, we're gonna get into your history in a second, but I think that was a funny like little excerpt of BJJ history, because Eddie was talking a lot about finally getting BJJ to be mainstream and what it was going to take. That event that he fought in, where he fought Hoyler, was Metamoris. So there was already guys trying to do that, right? But he was talking about EBI and constructing something different, something that was like more friendly to the audience. And you were kind of a part of that inception. What was that era like?
Yeah, I mean, Metamoris kind of was the first one really to come on the scene and like start doing a jiu-jitsu show that seemed a little more modern, right? But yeah, Eddie was envisioning like a tournament, and he was trying to play with the rule sets. He was trying to think about the rule sets, and that's when he kind of came up with his own rule set, because he's just all about submission only. So he really didn't want anything to be in the ref's hands. So he wanted to come up with some way for that. And so he ultimately just really thought about an overtime that was a jiu-jitsu overtime. So far we've had these overtimes that are wrestling based, or the ref just, picks the winner. But Eddie basically came up with a jiu-jitsu overtime. Let's start in jiu-jitsu positions. Let's have a shootout, and let's see who wins these jiu-jitsu positions. So that was way back when, we didn't even have any no-gi. Like, Metamoris was the first really to kind of come out and do so, other than ADCC, right? ADCC had been running for a long time, but it didn't have many eyeballs on it, it didn't have much promotion. Within the scene, we all were watching it, of course, but it wasn't really getting pushed to other places. But yeah, Metamoris came out, and then I think I feel like back then gi was still the big show. Gi was still the big show. So no gi hadn't really came out and taken the stage yet. And so Eddie was kind of coming up with this rule set that was more jiu-jitsu based. And that's what he ended up coming up with, was this OT rule set, submission only, and then the OT rule set with back and arm bar as like kind of your two main jiu-jitsu positions. You either take the back or you start in an arm bar. And yeah, it started all this stuff off, really, you know.
Yeah, and as you talk about it, I just remembered, and who knows if my memory serves me right. I've been hitting the head a lot. I remember when Eddie was starting EBI, he was hesitant about like putting his name on it because he wanted it to be for everybody, but he realized that like for the purpose of like, you know, his name having recognition, it was the smartest move. But with that being said, it was a tournament for everybody, but he was going to be sending out his own students. So let's talk about EBI 1. You were still a purple belt, if I'm not mistaken. And he sends, it was you and Gio, who at the time was already like an OG black belt. I mean, that must have been a pretty good feeling to be like sent out on the front line like that for EBI 1.
Yeah. Gio is fresh black belt. So Gio like just got his black belt, but he got it real quick. You know, he got his black belt within like 3.5 years. So it felt like for Gio,
like Derek Moneyberg.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
All right, sorry, go on.
Just actually earned it, but yes. But yeah, like, you know, and so it really felt for Gio, it really felt like a like, okay, let's test it now. You're this fresh black belt. They're saying you're a black belt in 3.5 years. Let's see if you actually are. And he's had some, you know, good performances up until now, but he hasn't gone against, you know, some of the best guys. Like he was gonna end up going against Jeff, you know. And Jeff was, you know, still, you know, it was like getting later in Jeff's career at that point, but he was still up at the top of his game realistically, you know. So yeah, so that's where Gio was at. And then I was coming in as a purple belt. I'd been a purple belt for a while, probably like 2.5 years, maybe 3 years at that point, coming in from Denny's camp, from Denny Procopo's in San Francisco. And yeah, I was training there with Eddie leading up to his Metamours for like a month. So Gio and I were mixing for a little bit. And then when Eddie invited both of us, you know, Gio was just like, man, let's just join my camp, you know, just come in, let's train together. Let's, you know, put in like a nice 4 or 5 month camp leading up to this and just, you know, come stay at the Fighter House and train with us leading up to it. So that's what I ended up doing. I went down to both Gio and I were living in the garage at that time. So we were both just still making it, you know, even Gio at that time, he was still just making it, you know. And yeah, we trained together leading up to that. And that was huge, you know, up until that point, jiu-jitsu was like, it was a hobby for me. Like I really enjoyed it. I loved competing, but it was it took like second place in my mind to like kind of what I was doing online with like online marketing. And you know, I was in San Francisco for kind of the startup scene, and I was interested in that space. I expected myself to be joining some sort of startup that was changing the world, doing this or that, you know, and that was my main focus. And jiu-jitsu was second. But when Eddie gave me this opportunity for EBI, I kind of decided, I was like, you know, I'm only going to be young and able to compete like this for this short window. So let's just make jiu-jitsu number one for a bit, and let's ride it and let's see how it goes, you know. So that was a switch.
It's funny you should say that. Like you wanted to jump on the opportunity while being young, and here we are 11 years later, and you're still just so killing the game. Yeah. We're gonna get back to that. 'Cause I wanted to talk about your longevity too, but sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Ben. Were you gonna say something?
Nah, I was just saying that. Yeah, it turns out the window is a lot longer than I realized. But yeah.
Well, like most things in jiu-jitsu, we're still kind of learning, right? Like back then, like you weren't just learning techniques and learning, like we were learning like the right ways to treat our body to create longevity. We didn't quite know that there was a thing as like jiu-jitsu past 35, like it, but obviously it's a thing. Talking about those old days, right? Eddie obviously was a pioneer in a lot of things, and one of those being bringing jiu-jitsu mainstream. But I wonder if there's anything else that changed in the jiu-jitsu or in the landscape of martial arts, entertainment. Is it the growth of mixed martial arts? But what is it that has caused or lend itself to make jujitsu take that next step? Like, why are we all of a sudden, or is it consuming UFC BJJ and considered digestible, right? Like, what has really changed? Because like you said, Metamoris and shows like that didn't do a bad job. They tried.
No, they're good. They're good. We enjoyed them. I think we saw quickly once these tournaments started hitting the scene that people did have an appetite to watch them, that there was a market here. And I think that's what we keep seeing, because what's always existed is that this is one of the most practiced sports in the world. Like when it comes down to it, like even if we're talking about something like soccer, or you can pull out any sport you want, but I think jiu-jitsu might have the most practitioners worldwide for like any sport. So just its own inbuilt, like kind of insular community of just people who are interested in it, where jiu-jitsu is massive, just already on its own, even without getting out to the mainstream and the people who don't practice it, um, so yeah, we were just finally starting to tap into that. I think the main thing that really helped was, I think we did need to see no gi more. I think gi wasn't that mainstream. It wasn't going to go that mainstream. I think that is a lot more even for the insular crowd, even too. So having these no gi shows and having these shows that were focused on no gi really helped out, and also really helped. It looked a lot like MMA then that way too. And it looked a lot like just wrestling and something that people could kind of consume and understand more simply. The gi is harder to see. If you don't train the gi, then you're not sure what you're looking at all the time. So whereas no gi, you can kind of just you can see it a lot easier. So I think that no gi switch was a big deal, and Eddie's the main person that played that role. The switch to no gi, which is, that's massive. Like to be able to say one certain person like switched the sport over from gi to no gi. Of course, a lot of people have played that role, and ADCC's got a big part of it. But Eddie was the first gym to drop the gi and to go completely no gi. First gym, like 100% no gi gym. And then he comes through with like kind of the first rule set for a no gi tournament, and pushes that. And his whole anthem, his whole speech the whole time has been like, we need to go no gi, so we can be good in MMA. So he's really the person that's pushed this no gi scene to come forward. And I think that's one of the main things, is the no gi side. But other than that, it's just where the elements you're seeing now are like, we need to get a lot more athletic. We need to get a lot more like we need to be professional athletes, like you're seeing big changes with the stand up. Our wrestling is getting a lot better. It's much more dynamic. There's much more like flying, jumping subs. There's a lot of standing passing. If you watched old ADCCs, even back when EBI was coming out, even at that time, I remember still like everyone passed from their knees. Everyone passed from their knees. Like there wasn't even standing passing that much. But now you watch jiu-jitsu, it's all standing passing. No one's passing from their knees, and our wrestling is a lot better, a lot more dynamic. So just kind of mixing everything, the stand up with the ground jiu-jitsu, having people be really athletic, really dynamic. We finally have these young kids that have been like, bred and raised for the sport, and they're now like reaching of age, like Micah and Andrew Tackett and Rudulo twins. We have these kids that are just, dynamic, athletic, got all the moves still. And so they're fun to watch. And that's what jiu-jitsu needs. It needs to be dynamic. It needs to look like a professional sport. So that's what we kind of have to in the sport as athletes kind of rise up to. We can't just be sitting on our butts and playing the slow game totally. But I do like, though, that like within jiu-jitsu, there is always still room for that. There's always still room for like slowing the pace down and playing that trap game, and doing that against even the faster guy. You could have like you could be going up against a Rudo twin, and you could still find ways to slow the pace down and to set up traps, and to let them kind of put themselves into a problem that they shouldn't have put themselves into. So speed is really interesting with jiu-jitsu. It's still more chess than it is checkers. which is kind of cool. But we definitely need to go through this process of, and we're still going through it, of becoming kind of more athletic and more dynamic and all of that. So
As you kind of adjust to that evolution, with somebody like yourself, if I'm not mistaken, you're 36 now, Ben?
yeah. Nice.
But nice. I know you're younger than me. It's all good. You're a kid to me.
Nah, I just hear calling out all the stats and all the stuff. So
No, I know I'm telling you, bro. I warned you I might fanboy a little bit during this interview. I'm trying not to. So you're 36 now. EBI ones 11 years ago. You'd already been in the game for a while. Probably, I think you started at like 20-ish, right? So you've been around for a while. What do you attribute your longevity to in the game as you adjust to, like, obviously you answered it, part of it, right? It's understanding that you need to slow certain things down potentially, right? But I know that you're big on a holistic lifestyle as well, from just the way you approach a lot of things to your diet. Can we talk about that a little bit?
yeah. I mean, that's been the biggest, the most important thing for me, really, is just finding this longevity. The number one thing I've noticed, just of everyone I've tried to come up with, and who's made it and who hasn't, the number one deciding factor is who got injured and who didn't. It didn't have anything really to do with, like, that kid didn't have enough talent, or he wasn't focused enough, or he didn't want it enough, or it wasn't any of those aspects. It was just he ended up running into some bad injuries that he couldn't get over, and he had to call it, for most everyone that I see. So you really have to figure out how to train this sport and stay away from the injuries, keep yourself healthy, keep growing, keep getting stronger. And so I had to learn that still the hard way. Right after EBI, one week afterwards, I broke my arm in practice and at one of the open mats, and I broke it just with my own squeezing power. Like, I was in mount, and I was going for a mounted triangle, and I was just trying to get I was grabbing my shin, trying to get my leg in to really clinch it up. And I was just squeezing so hard to try and get my leg in that I just broke my radius bone right in half. And it just popped right there on the spot. And I hadn't had a broken bone ever. So, I mean, my bones are strong. It's not like I had weak bones. I literally just squeezed through it, So that kind of really showed me, after that incident, I kind of really took in of, like, okay, wow, you can't, you have to, like, be aware of how much tension you're putting on yourself. How much, like, you don't get to just, like, go balls to the wall and squeeze as hard as you want and expect your body to handle it, So, which is obvious, but it took me, breaking my arm to realize that too. So I had to learn it the hard way as well. But after that, I've just kind of, I think it was that incident. And then it was a few incidents with rolling with people who are older and are really healthy and are still doing really well. And one of those in particular was John Jock. When I got to roll with John Jock, he was like 52 at the time. And, I was like 30, and he was rolling me up. He was, like, pretty easy and pretty simply, he was able to stay calm, stay cool. He had a very simple, focused, clear game. And it just worked. He was able to just kind of put me through his stuff. And, I looked at him, and he was like, he's still really healthy. He doesn't have major injuries. He gets to train when he wants. And I was like, man, he's beating me at 50. That's like 20 years from where I'm at. I'm like, at that time, I was looking at this real small window of competing that I was like, man, I got maybe to like 33, or something. But, now John Jock's beating me at 50. I'm like, well, shit, if I just take care of myself, I could actually literally be the best version of myself when I'm 50. That's a reality. That's something that could actually be real. So that kind of just slowed me down a bit. That gave me, like, a nice long perspective. And, same thing when I rolled with Eddie. Eddie would always roll me up, and always with kind of his game, every single time, through his quarter guard, lockdown, electric chair, just, hold you out and mount forever with the arm triangle game. So, rolling with a couple of these with our coaches, with our lineage, and kind of feeling how they were able to like, they didn't need to be the strongest, they didn't need to be the most athletic, and how they used their technique too. Like, it helped me slow down. It helped me realize some of those things. So I really took those in a lot, and it slowed me down. At the same time, like now I'm like saying like when you become technical and athletic and dynamic, so slowed down is not the right word, like, but honestly, when I like try and reach for the right word, the best word I've come to is, and it really helps me, and I try to give it to a lot of other people, is tension. Tension is the thing you have to stay away from, like, and you can have it to a certain degree, but you just can't go past that red point. So I like to say that, like, I don't allow my tension to get above like 90%, you know? And so as long as because tension is, because like I could be burning my lungs, I could be working hard, I could be doing jumps, you could do all kinds of things at like 80%, 90% tension, like kind of loosely or even kind of tightly, but only to 80, 90. But once you're so tight, everything's so tight, you're squeezing as hard as you can, everything's so tight. When it's like that, that's when anything goes one way or another. That's when you get a pop. That's when something gives. Because that's basically all it is. It's like it was too tense. It was too tight. Your body couldn't handle it. So that's really when you boil it down to it. I feel like that's what actually injures you is tension. And so that word really helps me a lot to like focus on. Because honestly, a good 80% of the time, it's your own actions that are getting you injured. It's not like that guy put a heel hook on you and then he hurt you. Yeah, that happens for sure. Or some guy arm barred you, or some guy went for your neck. For the most part, you were in some sort of dynamic movement, or you squeezed too hard, or you tried something that you shouldn't have tried, or you did too hard and you hurt yourself. You know, 8 times out of 10, it's they hurt themselves, So those have been key lessons. Those have been key
Sorry, I
lessons.
didn't mean to cut you off, but it just make you think, like, I wonder if there's a correlation with as we get older, understanding stuff like that, and the correlation between like being tense, not just literally, but like figuratively, like that ego that comes with our youth, and just everything is 1,000%. Because I know personally, you don't know this about me. I'm literally sitting with my leg up because I just had ACL surgery. I've had like 7, because I just that meathead mentality of everything has to be 1,000%. And then how your body eventually is just like, nah, homie, that's not how it works, right?
Yeah. 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 I think we do. Yeah. Like you're saying, yeah, when we're younger, we have more of that in us. But I think even when you're younger, if you could learn some of these, because you can still go 100%. It's just which part of it can't be 100%, and the part of it that can't be 100% is the tension. You can go as fast as you want. You can burn your lungs as much as you want. You can, I don't know. You can do so many other things to 100, but you can't break the tension part past 100. That's when it actually injures you. So it's just really, at the end of the day, it's always like knowing. You actually have to learn. You gotta find the answer, and then once you got the answer, you gotta follow that shit.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. It's just may not be the same for everybody, but as a whole, I think that's probably something we can all universally adapt. That, like, just understanding when you need a red line and when you don't, right? Um, with that being said, I'm gonna kind of shift a little bit because that does have to do with attitude. Um, You've been around the block for a long time. It's funny because when I first got introduced to you, they're talking about you like this young guy, this new guy that, and now, especially going into EBI 25, you're an OG. Like, you kind of got like that legendary aura around you. You've seen a lot of things change, I'm sure, over your time in jiu-jitsu. Sometimes I call what we're in right now, it's almost like the attitude era from like pro wrestling, where like you got all of a sudden, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just, it's like it's all about beef. There's all these beefs between gyms, and there's, it's about like having these polarizing opinions, and sometimes it's like controversy is working its way into a sport martial art,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Yeah.
for better for worse, it gets clicks, right? It gets attention, right? What's your thoughts on all that? I mean, you're pretty chill, dude. I'd like your take.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's because we're just there. We got these shows with budgets, and they're trying to like kick us mainstream, and so they're going back to the simple old school playbooks that have always worked. Let's find the grudge matches, let's find the drama. But jujitsu just they're not gonna succeed that well with that because jujitsu just doesn't have that as much. It's definitely there. It's there in a way, but you can't just make it so basic because it's really not that basic. It's such a more of a technical, honorable, like just I don't know, when you win it's because you were really the better guy. Like you really like I don't know, it's not like fighting. It's really different than fighting. So I feel like they need to come in with a bit more of a softer hand when they're trying to find like what the narratives and what the real kind of interest is here with jujitsu and within the scene, um, rather than just kind of going back to this old playbook because it really doesn't work within jujitsu. When you watch the UFC BJJ show and they're trying to like, most of the guys are just laughing and joking within each other. They're just like friends hanging out. Like I don't know, man. I mean, we want to fight and we want to get down and fucking scrap with each other, but we're kind of friends at the end of the day. So you gotta look at the elements of the sport that are, like it really does need to be, you gotta educate the casuals. That's where you really gotta kind of like come in at is you gotta try and educate the casuals to like the real dynamic. Like this is probably the most like one of the most technical, hardest, dynamic sports out there. You know, like there's just so like you could say MMA is because it allows everything, right? And maybe, but sometimes when you pull off one piece and like it is with jujitsu, you allow everything, but there's no striking. There's just so many ways to get that submission, and there's just so many ways to play this like battle that so many movements, so many things you've never seen before, so many different ways to approach it that like I don't know, jiu-jitsu is so unique. There's so much going on. I think you just have to really press into that. I think you have to help people see that world, see how much is really happening. You have to explain to them what these guys are doing while they're doing it and help them see that world. The drama isn't going to sell it. Because the other thing too about, so like UFC, BJJ, they try to sell a little bit with that drama and they do that. And then you get to the match and now these guys are doing jiu-jitsu. They're not, it's like when you sell it with drama, you expect them to fight it out. You expect them to have some fists, like now they're gonna come here, they're gonna fist bump, and they're gonna hug each other. Like, it's so it just doesn't work. You can't use the drama and then watch jujitsu. You gotta
Yeah,
know what you're watching.
you brought up something that I think is really important, and it actually goes back to like Eddie talking about trying to make this mainstream way back when, brainstorming with Rogan. It really is about educating the casual, right? Because what makes MMA pretty easy for the casual is like everybody understands the guy that's getting hit in the head is probably losing, right? But if you don't know what you're looking at in jujitsu, I mean, it's hard for, guys like us to put ourselves in those shoes, maybe necessarily, but it can be hard to get into it. I know you have a tech background. I didn't even plan to talk about this. It's kind of
Yeah.
just now we're going podcasty, right? We're just gonna chat for a second.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder, bro. I wonder if there's a way that you could that jujitsu could be made a better, more educational experience for the fan, that maybe doesn't know too much, or the non-fan, the casual, by incorporating the things that we have at our disposal now, AI or just and a more a platform that somebody can interact with more. I wonder.
Yeah, I think if we get smarter with a platform that can really explain the sport more simply to people, that's honestly something I'm kind of working on a bit. right now. Um, because yeah, like right now we just have these like BJJ Fanatics is great for like what it's done, for people and selling their DVDs and everything. But that's a very like, again, in the community kind of thing. You're gonna have to go to this website, really know what you're looking for. You got to get this DVD, look into it. It's like gonna be 8 hours long. So we need a way to visualize the sport more simply to people and really make it digestible. So yeah, I think we do need some more kind of modern startup platforms that show the sport really simply, and help people learn it, help people see what gyms are around them, help people see how they can train it, how they can watch it too. Like it's across so many platforms, and all the shows are at different times that like people don't really even know how to tune into it. And UFC BJJ is coming in now, but something I really like about jujitsu that we're kind of starting to push a little bit is it's starting to do well on YouTube. We're starting to put more shows on YouTube, and I really want to see us keep going that path. I really want to see us keep going that route, because it'd be really easy to tell the community and the mainstream kind of people like, hey, just tune into YouTube to see it, because it's access to everyone. Um, but UFC is kind of coming in now with some, they're starting to get people on contract, and they're starting to add that element to jiu-jitsu, which jiu-jitsu so far hasn't had to deal with contracts for the most part. Guys are just able to compete for any competition and grab any title. So we've always seen everyone mix. We always know who's the best, because throughout a year we'll see everyone go against each other. But now with, exclusive contracts, there's a bunch of matches we're just never going to see. And that's a real bummer. Like that's a super big negative. So I would really like to see us stay away from the exclusive contracts. And I would, the best thing that could be for our sport is for it to go to YouTube, because, it is nice that right now UFC BJJ is showing all their stuff on YouTube. So that's been a really great push for us and push for the sport. It's just, they're setting it up to eventually go back to their UFC Fight Pass, and they are contracting these guys like Andrew Tackett. The Tackett brothers are on exclusive contracts. I know a bunch of other guys are on exclusive contracts. And so it just means that we're not gonna like we could never see Andrew Tackett and the Rudolo twin again. Won't see that matchup again, because one's on one and one's on UFC, and people say that they think that that's like the best jiu-jitsu match they've seen in like recent history.
Yeah.
And,
That's a shame.
yeah, so there's matchups like that, there's champs like that now that we won't know who's actually better between them anymore, because and other things, even more important things, like like we're saying, like, okay, so drama doesn't work for jiu-jitsu. What does work for jiu-jitsu? I think an element of drama that does work for jiu-jitsu pretty well is team matchups. When you have team matches, it's natural. You don't have to like make it fake drama, and you have the whole team. You're getting to watch, like, like when we watch good quintets, they're pretty, those shows are fun. You like watch, you get to see the whole team, you see the coach and the team, and you're seeing everybody react. There's a natural storyline, because one guy's, like when you had, like when on the one quintet, when Boogie got submitted, and then Gio comes out to go against him. I saw him, like that, like natural little storyline that happened there was just like super hype, and there's all kinds of like, yeah. So like what Craig Jones is doing right now with his next incoming CGI with the team matches, I think that's like a natural drama story narrative that is just very interesting, that I think could do really well with jiu-jitsu. But we'll never be able to keep having team competitions if these exclusive contracts come in, because once these guys are signed, then they'll never be able to compete for their team. So we won't be able to have team events. It's not like I want to have all kinds of individual competitions still, but I think there's a room for team events. That's the main thing that pushes wrestling. Wrestling is all about dual meets. It's all about dual meets. That's what packs their stands. And so I think if we did more dual meets, 10th Planet versus Padigo, B Team versus New Wave. Like these are the kinds of things that would sell out shows. Like B Team versus New Wave, that's gonna sell out a huge pay-per-view. That's gonna have a bunch of people on YouTube watching that. Whichever way you want to run that, you know. This next Craig Jones Invitational, I hope it has a ton of people watching it. It should. It's super hype. It's all the teams. It's got all the narrative. But shows like his and like that, they won't be possible if we have companies like UFC, BJJ sign exclusive contracts on people. So I don't know. There's things like that I think that jiu-jitsu could be that are really cool about jiu-jitsu that exclusive contracts could mess up.
Yeah, that's always a mess, and it's funny because you'd think that they'd have learned that from like other sports, that's not exactly going to lend itself to trying to grow the athletes, right? Um, but it kind of brings about another question that I guess it's a slightly broader one, and it's more just about jujitsu in general. Um, I had Jeff Curran on yesterday, who's an old school black belt, and I always like to throw this out there. Um, Back in the day, jiu-jitsu was very tribal, right? It was about like, this is my team and this is who I train with, right? And cross training wasn't really encouraged like it is nowadays. Um, and I think when you bring up the natural narrative that comes with team versus team, I think you're spot on. I think that is something that it's not fake and it's easy to get behind. But you're coming from 10th Planet, which is incredibly united despite having a million affiliates. I mean, it's the team that doesn't break up. It's the team that doesn't become, 10th Planet and 11th Planet, and now we got 14 over there in Dubuque. It's like you guys, and I'm sure it starts at the core, right? Like with Eddie and just the way that's a whole nother thing. But as long as we're kind of getting away from this idea of tribalism and like everyone's training with everybody, and today Mikey's training fights out of this gym, and well, now he's fighting out of that gym, and I get it, you go where you get the best training. But how do you force, like, one, are you a fan of it? Two, do you foresee that getting in the way of trying to push team versus teams?
That's true. It's true. Like I do feel that side of it. Honestly, that side of things, like I war with both those sides when I like kind of like feel how I want to push this team narrative and see more team events. Um, because I do feel that, and I even feel that coming up with this next Craig Jones, and when there was other team events happening, I did feel like teams start to go, okay, it's about us, so we need to stay more about us. We need to not cross train more. We need to like focus more on our guys. So I could kind of feel that element happen. I could even feel that element happen within me. So it's tough. I do like the universal side of jiu-jitsu as well, where we just all train with each other and we don't worry about teams as much. And we have been really big with that as 10th Planet. We like are constantly always running the open mats in most cities, and we're real big on being like kind of a cross train. We're always been about cross train. Eddie's always told us go cross train. Everyone's cool, go cross train. So even back in the era where cross train wasn't cool, Eddie was always about cross train, and he was always taking stuff from everybody and saying whose name, giving the credit, so I feel that as well, so I kind of war back and forth. I think that it shouldn't become the main thing. I don't think necessarily the teams, but I think there's a nice window for it, but yeah, I do like just it is, at the end of the day, it's kind of a individual sport. It's just that even within the individual side, it's like we still got to stay away from the exclusive contracts though, you know because uh man, there's just so many beautiful competitions all throughout the year that are all so different. And so if I'm signed up to one, I can only do UFC Fight Pass. Now I can't do ADCC. Now I can't do CGI. Now I can't do PGF. I can't do, my combat jujitsu. I can't do, there's just so many like really, and it's really cool that people can like think about a rule set or think about how they want to do it, or they have money and they're interested in putting a show together. It's really cool that if they've just got 30 grand and they can put that up as a prize, then they're going to have everyone show up, you know? And right now that's still the case because people aren't signed. So if you got 30 grand, you want to put that up as a prize, you're going to get all the people at whatever weight class you're throwing that down, you know? So, and that's really cool. But if we move here to like exclusive contracts, then we're not going to see these guys mix and we're not going to get to mix and we're going to get sidelined, you know, like these guys that are exclusively signed for UFC Fight Pass, they don't even compete that much anymore, you know, not compared to the kind of numbers you can put in jiu-jitsu wise. You know, Mikey's the best example. Mikey Musumeci, you know, he switched off to one and he had maybe one match with one regular modern jiu-jitsu player within like 2 or 3 years. Everybody else was just, you know, let's see him against this judo guy. Let's see him against this guy, you know, like, so he's completely sidelined from the sport. Mikey's a great practitioner. He's amazing to watch. So I would love to see him mix it up with everybody in our sport. I'd love to see him go to ADCC. I'd love to see him go to CGI. You know, it would have been great to see him mix it up in CGI. You know, and now he's switched from one over to UFC Fight Pass, and he just kind of pigeonholed, stuck in that 135. And the thing is that, like, you know, these shows are once every 3 months, and it's just one match. So once every 3 months, if you're on every single show too, you'd have to be on every show. Then you're going to get one match every 3 months. And that's just not much for jiu-jitsu.
No.
Jiu-jitsu, you can compete a few times a month, you know, and you're going into tournaments, you know, so like even watching guys go to like ADCC trials, you know, even not the main shows, ADCC trials, that's super fun to watch. Watching Andrew Tackett go through ADCC trials, that was huge, you know, so we don't get to see Tackett mix it up with all these other competitions, which is a real bummer, you know.
Yeah, and like, you know, an up-and-comer gets that opportunity to sometimes make a name for himself when he gets to step on the mat against that legend or the big name. That, to your point, may no longer be the case, right? It really does change the whole landscape.
And what's really honestly most important, and this is why UFC needs to change this. This is why they need to realize this and change this, is that like we start losing our interest in these people. Like I've sort of lost my interest in Mikey, you know, because I haven't seen him go against anyone in like 4 years.
Interesting. Yeah.
So like the sport in general kind of starts to lose. So that's going to happen to Andrew Tackett. If UFC BJJ is not able to like sign everyone in the sport, all these best guys, then Andrew's just going to be kind of going against second level dudes. And we're not going to get to see him in like ADCC and CGI and all these dynamic kind of stuff. And then we're going to kind of slightly lose our interest as much in him, you know, like, so I think you're risking it as an athlete when you sign that contract, but then also for UFC BJJ, you're like, let your stars keep building their names. Let them go to the other promotions. It builds their names. If Mikey goes to ADCC and wins ADCC, now you get to say that you have the ADCC champ. You know, like use the narrative, use these shows, like work together. I don't think you need to own these athletes. I think it hurts when you do that. So
it certainly feels like a dated model, right? That doesn't fit what I think as a whole the sport needs. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because I was going to ask you if you have any interest in UFC BJJ for yourself, but I think you kind of answered that for me.
Well, no, I definitely want to be on UFC BJJ, and I've been, you know, and I message these guys. I'm trying. I forget the name of the guy who's running it right now, but
Steven Techie.
Yes, Techie. Yeah, Steven Techie. Yep. You know, we're talking back and forth. He almost got me on one of them. So I want to be on there for sure. I've been in UFC Fight Pass since the beginning. You know, I was on their first jiu-jitsu show, so most of my whole jiu-jitsu catalog is on UFC Fight Pass. So I definitely want to be on UFC BJJ. I just wouldn't do it if I had to sign an exclusive contract.
Got it. Yeah, that really is interesting, because you're right. You are an OG of UFC Fight Pass. I mean, Eddie Bravo's Invitational was the first real taste of professional jiu-jitsu that they got on Fight Pass fast forward to now, and it's, there's a whole nother world kind of being created. But with that being said, EBI 25 is going to be on UFC Fight Pass. It is right around the corner. We touched on it earlier. Let's circle back, my friend. So 11 years after you make your EBI debut, you're stepping back on the EBI stage. A lot's happened. I know you did, obviously, the Combat Worlds between then. You had your the big fight against Wilson Hayes. You had a lot of big moments. I know you've, between competing all over the world. Sure, I saw you in competing in Aiga as well. You've had a lot happen. What led to returning for EBI 25?
Yeah, just the opportunity, opportunity came. So I've always wanted to go back to EBI. We've been doing the combat jiu-jitsu like since then. Like Eddie kind of brought in the combat jiu-jitsu, and then he really wanted me to be the one doing the combat jiu-jitsus because of my rubber guard and kind of my 10th planet style. He wanted, a representative in there that's kind of showing that the 10th planet game works, especially the rubber guard. So he pushed me for the combat jiu-jitsu, which is good. I've enjoyed that. It's been real good. But yeah, I haven't got a crack back at EBI yet. So it's been a long time. And EBI is what, for me personally, I like regular jiu-jitsu is where I'm at. I do the combat jiu-jitsu, but I love jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is a sport that I'm in love with. And so being able to come back to EBI is that's always been the goal. So yeah, it's here. It's in San Antonio. It's right nearby. It's at 155 at my weight class. So yeah, just got the call from Eddie and it's time. It surprised me that it's taken this long, 11 years, but yeah, it's good. I feel like better than I've ever been. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm aging out at all. So.
Well, everything seems, without being cliche, everything happens for a reason, whatever, but everything certainly seems to be falling into place. It's a good one to come back for, Ben. EBI 25, the lightweights, and I want to run through some of the competitors. We're gonna have to touch on all of them, but there's some huge names in there. And one of the things that I really, really like about, well, you see it a lot in Eddie's tournaments, but especially in this bracket, I see a lot of generational, bridges happening. You have some of the old school guys, some of the new school guys, some even like a Gianni Grippo, who was like a gi guy back in Marcelo Garcia gi guy, and then you obviously yourself, you've got the Max Hansons and down to Bryce Mitchell stepping over from the UFC. You got a lot of different sort of characters in the mix. It's really exciting in my opinion.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The bracket they got for this is stacked. Yeah. They got so many people. And it is cool that they even have characters like Bryce Mitchell in there to kind of bring more eyes, but man, Bryce Mitchell's legit. He pulled me out for, when he was getting ready for that, matchup with Gracie, he pulled me in, for a weekend, training to kind of help him prep, and so we trained for a good little, sprint there leading up to the Gracie match. And man, I tried to put it on him. I tried to put it on. I tried to put all my closed guard stuff, all my everything, but just to mirror the Gracie match. And he scraps, man. He's really good. Very hard to do anything to just he never gives up his belief. He's just constantly moving, constantly working. So he's gonna scrap in there. But yeah, we got Ethan Crelinsten, we got Gianni Grippo, we got Max Hanson, Keith Krikorian. We got a bunch of other guys like Jordan Hawley, Christos, Papadelos. And there's a bunch of guys in there. It's honestly pretty stacked all the way through. So what's cool with EBI and being a big 16-man tournament like this is you don't really know how it's going to shake out bracket wise. You don't really know who you're going to get out of these people and who's going to get the matchups, and then how that's going to look for the finals. So it's always a long night, especially with the OTs, with the EBI OTs. it's just a long, grueling night, and you kind of just show up ready and see how it shakes out.
Yeah, I would have loved to like go through the bracket with you if it was out if it was available to like get some predictions and like just kind of go that route. Um, but you threw out some names already, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's play a little game. I'm not going to go through all of them. You mentioned most of these guys already, but I'm going to throw out a name and give me the first word or two that comes to mind, and that can be about their style of jiu-jitsu or just like sub sandwiches because I hear that's what he likes to eat. Like whatever the hell comes to mind, that's cool with me. So let's start with the combat jiu-jitsu lightweight world champion Ethan Crelinsten.
Ethan Krausen, man, just an animal, just a fucking beast. Dude's just super technical, but at the same time extremely strong, and he's coming to scrap. Ethan's a problem.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, perfect. Just like that. Give me some ideas.
Okay.
Spit out whatever comes to mind. Next, we'll go to the featherweight world champion combat jiu-jitsu and recently coming off a win at UFC BJJ, Keith Krikorian.
Yeah, Keith's a teammate. Keith's a super gamer. He's got amazing like kind of leg lock sweeps that he uses to set everything up with. He always comes in super focused, super ready, crazy cardio. I've had one match with him before, super tight match. We had to go to EBIT on when we were like lower belts. Otherwise, we haven't ever seen each other. Oh, we did see each other once in ADCC trials. Yeah, we were on the second day. We were deeper into the second day, and he beat me on a sweep. So we've had a couple little matches, but yeah, gamer, love Keith.
Max Hansen, the 2024 Pan Am No Gi world champ.
Yeah, Max is a scrapper. He's tough, gritty guy. He's got really good legs, really good guard, but he's also got really good pat. He's just really well rounded, honestly. He brings good energy. He really pushes the pace. Constantly pushing the pace.
He's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, very durable too. Like I've seen him in tough spots and he just keeps going. I haven't seen him really tapped. I don't know. So
you mentioned him as well, Jordan Holly, who, if I'm not mistaken, at this point everyone's competed against everybody. But if I'm not mistaken, Jordan had a win over one of your teammates, Gio Martinez, back in the day.
yeah, it's back at the last trials. I think the last trials he got him.
Okay, I got nervous, like trying to recall. I was like, "Shit, is that a real memory or not?" Woo, all right, go on.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Jordan's been in the game for a long time. Jordan's like just like me. He's been in the game for a long time. I remember having a match with Jordan when we were brown belts, back at Kumite or something. It was like way early on, and he ended up getting me in a heel hook back then. So super gamer, been in it for a long time, always showing up, staying consistent, and I watching him, he's still improving a lot. Like his game is still constantly improving. He's improving as a person. Now I have a lot of respect for Jordan Holly. He's staying in it and he's still getting better every time.
Speaking of guys that have been staying in it, Gianni Grippo, I brought him up earlier, old school, right? Like I remember I had a gi instructional of his from back in the day. And he's one of these guys that I don't want to say like disappears, but like you don't hear about him competing for a while, and then he's back, and then he's gone, and then he's back. Well, he's back. He looks great. I mean, he's involved over at UFC BJJ as well, if I'm not mistaken. Your thoughts on the Berimbolo OG?
Yes, Gianni is another one that's like been in it from the beginning. You know, he just has so much competition time. He's just constantly competing, in both gi and no gi. So, yeah, Gianni's just super experienced, but he's also just another one of those guys that's made a big change in the last couple of years and actually like really elevated his game. I mean, he looks better lately than he's looked in a long time. He switched over to Kai Vaughn's camp, and he's been doing that constraint-led approach, just kind of running the standards approach to jiu-jitsu. And he looks great. He's constantly competing, doing really well. So he doesn't look old at all. I don't know how old he actually is, but he doesn't look old. So he's going to be coming in looking to scrap. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited. That's a name that I got really excited to see on there, just because, like I said, as an old dude, as I'm, you're talking about these guys getting old, I'm older than all of them, but like it's just I like seeing the OGs. Um, Mauricio Rios, he's another one. We see him in UFC, BJJ.
Yep.
Like a name that I don't know, it just kind of came to mind right now, but I think he made a very solid showing, and he's obviously in the bracket.
Yep, yep. And I've mixed with Mauricio a little bit from time to time because Eddie is usually inviting him to EBIs and combat jiu-jitsus. I mean, combat jiu-jitsu. So we haven't actually gone against each other in a combat jiu-jitsu, but we've been on the same show like I think like 3 times. So and he also trains. He either trains out of a 10th planet or he's like around a 10th planet, but he's affiliated with us in some capacity. So I know him a little bit, and yeah, he's constantly getting better. He's come out of a little town, and but he makes it work. He gets on these big stages. He's a good performer, and he's got a lot of heart. So I like that guy. Yeah, Mauricio.
Yeah, you already mentioned obviously Bryce Mitchell, and you had that history.
Yeah,
I was excited to
yeah.
bring that up because I feel like a real gumshoe finding that. I was like, oh wait, he helped him prep for Kron, but you already kicked it. Um, how do you think but you obviously think he'll hang, right? I mean, I've done enough
I do
jujitsu,
think so. Yes.
yeah, I've commentated enough jujitsu shows where I see the way the jujitsu guys look at the MMA guys that are jumping in. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a side eye sometimes. And
Yeah.
I get it, but Bryce, like you said, it seems like he's got some pretty solid jujitsu chops.
He does. He does. And he's so hard to like to put away, to put anything on, like he just shrugs it off. He's so good at continuing to move, shrugging things off. And he's got some of his own submission games. He's got some of his that's going to be the biggest part, of course, for him though, is like cuz this is sub only. So if you put him into an 80cc rule set, then man, that could even be even stronger for him because as long as he keeps shrugging it off and scores a few
Right.
points here and there. But sub only, he's gonna have to find his subs. He's gonna have to find his subs, or he's gonna get put into EBOT, and then he's gonna have to find his subs. So, but he has him. He's got him. So it's gonna be. I'm gonna be interested to watch. It'll be interesting to see who he gets with his first matchup, and it'll be interesting to watch Bryce mix it up. Yeah, he's better than people think, for sure.
I remember a video circulating of him visiting. Maybe he was at HQ and he's like he's there with Eddie and he's like showing him his entries, I think, to like truck and stuff.
Yeah,
And Eddie's like legit like Eddie has no reason to like fanboy over somebody, right? But like he seemed like really impressed.
dude, he was honestly showing some new stuff there. He was honestly showing some new like twister setups and some new ideas. And we've spent forever in these positions, like we're all talking about him all the time. And he came in and he honestly showed some new shit that we're like now teaching and showing and talking about now today. So it was really funny. It was really cool. That episode in general, you should like look that up. Mastering the System. People should go watch it. It's a full episode on 10thplanetjj.com. And yeah, that episode. Also, Bryce, he literally, he hasn't been to LA yet. And so he's like, I've never been to Los Angeles. Like, I want to see the city. So his idea was he gets from the airport, he's just gonna walk from the airport to the gym. That's what he thinks because he wants to see the city. But if you've been to LA before, like that area, it's like from the airport to downtown LA is like that's forever long. And the walk is not nice. It's just all highways until you finally get in for a while. So
Is he like used to like think palm trees and movie stars and shit? Like
yeah, he's got this crazy story of his like ride there. He like gets this bike from this homeless guy, and then he gets this other like carriage from this other dude. He ends up showing up to HQ like with some bike he had pedaled off a homeless guy, and this big long story of like how he had gone from the airport to there, and it was pretty funny, very classic.
dude, yeah, that it's funny because it's like I wouldn't have guessed anything like that, obviously, but also it tracks, right? Like, yeah, all right, I can see it.
Country boy meets the city.
Dude. So, dude, there's a lot of other things I kind of wanted to touch on, but brother, like I think we've covered a lot. I wanted to get into your diet. I wanted to get you kind of touched on like the standard approach of training, which is kind of another buzzworthy topic, brother. But let's talk about what's next for you, brother. I don't mean to look past EBI 25, but you got EBI 25, right? It's like right around the corner. But what's next? What's in the what's coming up for Ben Eddy?
Man, I hope to keep getting, I feel the best I've ever felt right now. I'm all focused on like training and competing. So, I hope to just keep on getting invited to shows. Right now, we're in a very like invitational only kind of space. So, you're not going to get on UFC BJJ unless they invite you. You're not going to get onto Who's Number One unless they invite you. So you got to get on the streaks. So when a comp like this, EBI 25 comes up, it's important for all of us because it kind of tells the scene where we're at, and it's really going to give the temperature whether or not you're going to get invites afterwards, So you really got to perform, you really got to show, because it's not only how you do there, it's also that's going to like show the invites you're going to get afterwards. So hope to get on more Who's Number Ones. I had a nice win in my last Who's Number One. That was a nice match. So I hope to get on more Who's Number Ones. I hope to get on the UFC BJJ as long as we don't got to sign that contract. We got ADCC trials coming up. So East Coast ADCC trials is a big focus. I'm going to drop down to 45 now. So I've been competing at 70. People don't realize like the last 2 years I've been competing up at 170, going against a lot of the best guys in the sport. Honestly, I went against a lot of big names at 170 already in the last like couple years. And that's not my weight class at all. Like I walk around 160, 165. I just wanted to allow myself to get bigger, eat, not worry about cutting weight. Cause before then I was competing at 135. All of those combat jujitsus and everything you saw me at, I was at 135. And I'm 5'11", that's 135 is a crazy cut for me, but
It's crazy. That's not
yeah, I'm disciplined enough that I can do it mostly through my diet and then do the correct right like water cut afterwards, and I can do it cleanly. I'm not like killing myself. Like it's bare bones the most I can get down to, but I can do that cut cleanly. And so, but yeah, I wanted to get rid of that so I could kind of go up so then I could come back down, because I want to now be a 45er or a 55er. So, because for ADCC trials, like 170 is just too big. I honestly feel really good. Like in the gym, when I roll against really big guys, I feel really good, but they're like the worst weight class I feel like for you is that weight class like 10 or 20 pounds above yours, because now the guys, they have just a little more strength than you, but they still have the same movement as you. They still got the same technique as you, whereas when you go against an actual big guy, you guys have different skills now. This guy's slower and you're faster, he's got less cardio, you got more cardio. So you actually have different strengths, but if they're just one weight class above you, it's like you have the same strengths and they're just a little stronger. So I feel like that's like your hardest weight class, the weight class one weight class above yours.
I said I wasn't gonna get into it, but we're kind of organically going that way. With you moving around in weight classes like that, can you mind telling us a little bit about your diet? Because I know just from following you that you're, the meat, the fruit, the raw dairy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it a little bit, and then maybe how that plays into you being able to 35er, 170, finding a home somewhere in between.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been playing with my diet for a long time, always been focused on like trying to, what's the most optimal diet. And I've tried all the different diets. I've been even like fruitarian for like a few months, I've been vegan, I've been vegetarian, I've been paleo. I've tried pretty much everything. And this last diet that I've been on now for the last like 3 years is what they're calling like animal based. It's what you see Paul Saladino pushing, and it's basically meat, fruit, and raw dairy. So no vegetables, no breads, no processed food, obviously. But even just within the whole foods category, it's like you're eating good, you're eating whole foods. But even within whole foods, there's still so many more decisions to make, you know? So like all those past diets I was saying, like paleo or vegetarian or vegan, or I'm not saying like processed versions of those. I'm saying the whole foods versions of those. And so there's still like, even once you've moved past processed food and you're just eating good, clean, whole food, you still have 1,000 decisions to make. You barely like just entered the scene. Like you've just started to decide that you care about yourself, but now you got to figure out how to actually eat, because you got to know your sources. You got to know your farmers. You got to figure out how much meat are you having, how much vegetables are you having, how much fruit are you having, you know? And so, yeah, the past 3 years, you know, I realized that with all my other diets, the vegetables were pretty high. Meat was there, but it wasn't the biggest. And fruit was kind of like seasonal, not a big thing. So looking at this like animal-based meat and fruit, I was like, okay, yeah, let's try more of a, you know, let's make meat the main focus, and let's make fruit that like that filler, that appeaser, that like kind of even my water base, it's honestly just ultimately become like, it's practically how I get water. Like I drink I drink I would say probably my water intake is probably like 20% water. You know, the rest comes from food or
Wow.
yeah, food or coconut water. So coconut water, I drink a good amount of coconut water, but I source that really well. And but honestly, most of my water I think comes from fruit, you know, unless we're like deep in the middle of December and I can't find much. But you know, eating half a watermelon each day, eating all of these fruits that have so much water, like pineapples and pears and cherries and all this stuff, you know. I just been eating way more fruit, and but my main core is meat. And honestly, amongst all the diets I've been on, with all the other diets, I still wanted to cheat. I still wanted to have that ice cream, or I still wanted to have those chips or those like, or whatever kind of processed good. It's still like the cravings were still there. I still had cravings for something, you know? But with this diet, like my cravings, I don't even have a concept of cravings anymore, because like all the best stuff is what I'm eating, you know, like I want that fruit. Like what's better than fruit? You know, like really getting down and eating a bunch of really good seasonal good fruit is better than any candy or any whatever like dessert or anything you could have. And so once you just do enough of it, I think that was really the key, was I just needed to do more of it. And so when you really get down on fruit, and every time you want something sweet, you just go to fruit, it's really appeasing, you know, like, and then you don't have those cravings anymore. And then just eating more meat, I think that honestly just appeased all the other side of the cravings for me. I mean, it's hard to beat like a steak and eggs, you know, and some raw milk and a little bit of fruit. Just really, really realizing that like it ultimately just comes down to the source. You know, you just got to know your farmer. You got to know how it's grown. And, and that's what really matters. Like, honestly, don't really shop at grocery stores for the most part anymore. Basically, everything at the grocery store is junk. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just, if it's fruit, you can't trust it. If it's meat, you don't know who it came from. Even when it's the good stuff, you know, forget about all the rest of the aisles, you know? So yeah, you got to really know your source. But yeah, so I'm just eating meat, fruit, and raw dairy right now. And it's real simple, but you know, even if you're just to do that, the meat, fruit, raw dairy, and you didn't know your sources, you're just buying at the grocery store, you'd still be unhealthy. You know, you'd still be unhealthy. You got to know your sources.
We're like tricked into thinking like it's you use the term whole foods in the proper sense, but we're like
Yeah.
tricked into thinking like that perfect marketing, right? It's like, oh, I'll go to Whole Foods, and it's like, no, that's not necessarily I mean, obviously you could find some better options there maybe than you can at other places, but it's not like the end all be all to like being healthy is hitting up Whole Foods, right?
No, you need to find your local farmers market, and you need to start talking to your local farmers, and you need to figure out what, and that's not the end all be all either, because you got to figure out what kind of farming practices they have too. You know, half of them are going to be bad, and you know, or more. So there's really just a small handful of farmers that are, you know, actually farming healthy animals and have probably the hardest thing to find is healthy fruit and healthy vegetables. You know, if you eat vegetables, I kind of gave up vegetables because that seems like an impossible task. But healthy fruit is really hard to find. I mean, everybody sprays, you know, and when they call it organic, that's just a joke. They just they can use the same pesticides as the other one. They just have to use a slightly altered form, but then they're allowed to use as much of it as they want. So it's like, oh, it's organic, so you need to have 0.002% of glyphosate. Okay, well, we'll use 10 times as much though, you know. So that's literally what's happening with it. So it's, you know, organic doesn't necessarily mean a lot. You should probably still buy organic and do that if that's what you're doing. But you really should find your local farmer and I mean, realistically, we're not meant to live like this. We're meant to live in contact with the land. We're meant to live in contact with our food. We're supposed to be having our own trees that provide for us, you know, living close to the water, living close to the land. We're not meant to be in cities like this. So it's all
Is that what you're referring to? When I saw at some point you said I stopped wearing these plastic bags, and you had like something going on, like
yeah.
my memory serves me, or anti-plastics or wearing plastics. Is that what you're talking about? Like
Yeah, well, yeah, I changed. Yeah, I
material?
changed.
Sorry.
Yes, yeah, I stopped wearing rash guards. Yeah, I stopped wearing rash guards because it's synthetic. It's all just plastic. And, so because they can't even make a rash guard that's normal cotton or normal fabric. It's got to be synthetic. It has to be plastic. And
How
so,
can you
you know,
take a stance against spandex as a 10th planet guy, dude? Isn't it like a
yeah, right.
conflict of like, that's good.
Right.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
That-
Go ahead, go ahead.
no, just I mean, I got 1,000 really, really cool rash guards I would love to wear, but they're poisoning me is at the end of the day. And so and I've known that for a long time, but it's hard to make that switch. And now I'm finally just like, you know what? Yeah, I'm done with these rash guards too. I'm just living in plastic. I can't be just sweating 2 times a day and like I'm living in those. I live at the gym, so I'm just living in plastic if I'm wearing rash guards. And that just can't be good.
Yeah, it's weird, man. Like it's something that like in my household we realized recently. It's like when for the most part we try to wear like all cotton in it, but when like something like a rash guard or like some of my kids like athletic clothes with spandex and shit in it gets into the wash, it just all smells different. And it's like I had like a wacky theory about it. It was the synthetics for a while, right? And again, this is bro science for my part. I don't do like real research. I just talk to smart guys like you that do research for me. Uh, but so it's interesting. I had a feeling that I think I just saw you posted something about it at some point or maybe in an interview. So I was interested that it is what it is. Okay, so no spats, no rash guards.
Oh. Yeah, everything's I just wear these tees now. I wear these cotton t-shirts. And yeah, my shorts are not plastic and my underwear's not plastic. It's cotton as well. So so just
Wow.
all the way through. Yeah.
I said you guys are so loyal as 10th Planet guys, and it seems to never be points of contention, but this is, bro, quite the stance. No spandex as a 10th Planet guy. I got put that in my notes, dude. Dude, that's awesome, man. I really appreciated your time. I've kind of abandoned about my notes. I kind of abandoned them because it's just been such a pleasure to chat with you and kind of let this happen organically. Obviously, you've got EBI 25 right around the corner. That's coming up September 12th on UFC Fight Pass. A stacked card. Anything else? I mean, I know you're is it Ben Eddy 10P at on Instagram?
Yeah, at Ben Eddy 10P on Instagram. And then I have a YouTube channel, Ben Eddy Bravo. And
Nice. Nice.
yeah. So those are the two main places you could find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. With that, I think we've covered all the bases.
Good.
I really appreciate you, brother. I hope I didn't, glaze up too much. Like I said, it's good to get to touch base with somebody that I've followed and I've admired your career for quite some time. And I'm excited to see, it feels like a whole nother quarter or another portion of your career now. You're 36, you're healthy, you seem to be still figuring out what's best. And I think, what do I know? But I think continuing to evolve is a big part of longevity, not just in this sport, but in everything, but especially in this sport, you know. And you're doing it. So kudos to you, man. Thanks so much, everybody. Make sure you tune in one more time for Ben Eddy, September 12th, EBI 25, the OG from EBI 1 all the way back 11 years later. Tune in, catch the action, a big bracket. Ben Eddy, thank you so much. If anybody wants to check him out, 10th Planet Austin, correct?
Yes. 10th Planet Austin. Yep.
Thank you so much, Ben. We'll catch. We'll talk to you soon. We'll see you on the 12th.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thank you.